let's have some talk about what you'd like to see as trends in the organizational design, renewal, leadership, change, field, whatever you call that. And here's what I'd like to see. This is according to me. This has not been edited. I'd like to see a much stronger focus on culture and relationships in balance with technology. I think we become overbalanced technologically. We saw that in spades in the county, didn't we?
We did.
What was really priority was technological. And what fell out was the relationship and the cultural aspects. The very thing they most needed fell away. And I didn't finish the statement. In balance with technology, economics, and other organizational business factors. I didn't want to just leave it at technology. All of which are important and necessary. I'd like to see more attention paid by top leaders to understand the impact of their behavior on the organization's culture. Now, we all know that culture is lots of times reflecting the behavior of the senior leadership. We know that. But I don't know that the senior leaders know that. Not really. Look, how many of you are doing coaching of senior leaders? Are you talking with them about that? Huh? Is that
Yeah, in the 30-minute meeting.
Oh, in the 30-minute.
Sure.
You're really getting through there, right?
I've asked for an hour for that one.
I'm coaching people who are trying to do that within the organizations.
Okay, good. So maybe there's some hope. Anyway, I'd like to see a much stronger trend in that direction. I'd like to see more emphasis on the spiritual underpinnings of the organization. And by that, I mean as a starting point for change, for renewal, for improvement, for critical decisions, so that it becomes one of the critical criterion for making choices in organizations. And what I mean by that is deep-seated beliefs and values that inform and drive the actions. Things we hold dear, as Ron used to say. Remember that? He used to say our prouds
Prouds and sorries.
and our sorries. And that still resonates for me as being very, very critical. And finally, for me, I'd like to see the OD function of the organization be an executive function and not buried in administration or human resources. It does not belong there. That's not the place for it. Not if it's holistic. If it's just, employee relations stuff or oriented, yeah, it belongs there. And that's not to criticize that. But if it's truly whole systems change and leadership, which involves culture, structure, and process, it's got to be at the executive level of the organization. It should be a small group, in my opinion, supplemented by external resources as needed and adequately funded so that long-term change efforts are not killed mid-process. The executive and senior people must be the sponsors of OD efforts. They affect the culture, they set the priorities and strategies, and they allocate the resources. So where the hell else could it be if it really is going to be effective and sustained? Mary?
I would start off, I would like to have our field pay more attention to the virtual and temporary relationships. We have a tendency, I think, to look at the more permanent relationships. I would like us to talk a little bit more about collaboration. We sometimes collaborate well with each other, but we don't always collaborate well with our business partners. We tend to judge them, and I would rather get out of that role, which is your comment. I'd like to see us become business partners rather than problem solvers, and I think too often we see ourselves as a problem solver instead of really a business partner. So I would really like to change that. I would like to look at making sure that when we look at culture change, that we specifically look at some systems change too. I think that we have, particularly in my opinion, examined the impact of the reward systems in organizations. We can change some of the words of what was said, but if we don't change some of the systems in terms of the hiring, the promoting, the reward systems, I think we are introducing a temporary change rather than making it an institutional change. And I think that the last thing I would say is I really want us to become more integrated in the tools that we use. I mean, I don't want this to be 1 year or 2 years or 3 years we're going to do re-engineering, and another 2 or 3 years we're going to do balanced scorecard, and another 2 or 3 years we're going to do the newest book of the month. So I think that we have a lot of tools at our disposal, and I'd like to make sure that we use them as appropriate, but we also help to integrate them. One of the things I think has been sad is that the new innovations really are not coming from academics anymore. And I don't mean this as a criticism, I just mean it as a practicality. They're coming from consulting organizations instead. I'd like to see some of that innovation put back in the academic world where it can be shared and there can be greater collaboration.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, floor is yours. What would you like to see in trends and change and practice that we've been discussing? Whatever you call it. Go ahead, Nancy.
Well, I want to move to what Mary just said about the academic world. I'd like to see change coming right down in the educational system, beginning with preschool and up, and using a lot of what we already know and getting started at a younger level in terms of looking at self and culture, communications, building relationships, etc.
Okay. Starting earlier. Modeling or earlier. Yeah.
I would like to find a way to integrate multi-generational workforces, because I think what you're talking about is why we hit some of the plateaus, because relationship is about them using technology, where some generations say, I'm opposed to that technology, I want to build a real relationship. So I'm interested in that and drawn to that. I don't have any answers, just lots of questions.
But that's a trend you'd like to see.
Absolutely.
That's what we're talking about. Yeah, what's the trends? Yeah. Okay. This is a wish list.
I'd like to see us be successful in maintaining executive sponsorship of longer-term whole systems interventions. And my experience working both internally and externally is it's very difficult to maintain it long-term. So it'd be wonderful if we could figure out ways to really increase the chances of that occurring.
I would agree.
Joe?
I came particularly because I wanted to reestablish some connections with people that I haven't seen for a long, long time. But we need to have breakfast or something like that, you know, because I got a long story to tell. But anyway, there are a couple of things. First of all, I resonate with all the things that you're saying and stuff. But I have a little phrase that says, my definition of a professional is somebody that knows their own agenda and always subjugates that in favor of the client.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a surgeon doesn't do unnecessary surgery because it's in his best interest, and the same with anybody else. But I mean, it's stated well what you said. But I've always been conscious of that. And then the other thing, that I've had a checkered life, and a lot of it's really embarrassing. But
I think we all have.
But I've learned a couple of things, and one of them is that I'm really good at negotiation now. And I'm good at negotiation because I started a company about 30 years ago. What was it, 1983? Okay, and I had 3 strikes against me. I didn't have any money. I had no experience as an entrepreneur. And there was no market. Now, I've been a pioneer in a number of fields. As a matter of fact, so I've got lots of arrows. But anyway, that kind of a deal. But anyway, I learned a lot in that starting a company, and I read a book one time called The E-Myth by
Yes.
whatever his name is, Michael